Alabama. It was 72 today or something like that. It was great. I gave a tour, 2 tours in the Jeep. I love doing those tours. Anyway, tonight we have a special guest. It is January the 16th, 2026. We have open mic. Evolution is the dumbest and most dangerous religion in the world. It's nothing but a religion. You have to believe in evolution. You have to believe life can start itself. You have to believe everything fit in a dot. You have to believe you're related to a strawberry. It's dumb, folks. Dumb. Evolution's retarded. Okay? Call in. Prove me wrong. Okay? Let's see. We're on Facebook, 231,000 now. Rumble, at over almost 11,000. Let's see. Twitter, our own app, KentHovind.tv, Instagram, and TikTok. And just sign up for all of them. They're all free. Okay? You can't complain. Let's see. Do something with all that buttons there. There we go. The 16th. In a couple months, we're going to have our 10-year anniversary of being open at Dinosaur Adventureland in Lenox, Alabama. The guy donated the property to us April 16th, so 10 years ago. So come help us celebrate our 10-year anniversary. I didn't get the bid yet, Joseph. I had the guy who did the original blacktop around here did an awesome job. Loves our ministry. He came out today. We drove around. I said, look, any chance you can get this blacktop down around Noah's Ark to get some of the mud out of there before April? Oh, yeah. I said, well, give me a bid. I haven't seen it yet. It's going to be a bunch. So if you want to help, it's probably going to be around $60,000, $80,000. I don't know. The Bible's very clear that the lack of money is the root of all problems, or something like that. Second Opinions, chapter 5. So if you want to help with that, please do. I haven't seen the bid yet. That's just my guess. It's what it's going to be. It's a lot of blacktop needs to be done. So let's see. Aaron Spencer, arrested for shooting the guy who was molesting his 14-year-old daughter. I want to give him a hero's welcome, okay? Give him a raise. He's running for sheriff now up in Joseph and I are going up there, unless an emergency arises here, to Lone Oak, Arkansas. We'll do our show from there by Skype or whatever you'd call it. Come visit Dinosaur Adventureland. We're in Lenox, Alabama, straight north of Pensacola, 70 miles. Come see it. There's our crew. Well, somebody said, how many people work there? I said, how many work here and how many live here? Two very different questions. Yes. Okay. Help us stay open for free. Join our 777 Club, drdino.com. We just want to get the gospel out to the whole world. And we got a guest tonight going to help us do that. Okay, let's see. Get our series on creation, our series on what on earth is about to happen, about the future. So the Bible says God made the world. And it says that there would be scoffers in the last days who would be ignorant, right here, willingly ignorant of how God made the heavens and how the earth was overflowed with water. They're ignorant of that flood. And they're ignorant of the day of judgment. Three things they're ignorant of on purpose, willingly ignorant, is the creation, the flood, and the coming judgment. And for many years, I watched and loved the shows put out by Christen Adolfi, Lost World Museum. He did some fabulous material. 3 reasons giants existed: giant human jaws, giant ape jaws, giant beavers, giant dragonflies, giant humans. And John, unfortunately, died 2 months and a day ago. So I knew him pretty well, talked to him quite often, and really loved his ministry. His wife, Christen, has taken over the ministry, and we need to help support this lady, get it going. I noticed she's done a great job producing new material and showing John's material, but not enough people are watching. Up 11 days, only 285 views, 148 views. Did dinosaurs love belly rubs? I didn't get to watch that one, Christen. Anyway, let's welcome Christen. Come on into the show here. Christen, tell us who you are, where you are, and why on earth are you still in New York? Go ahead.
Well, like I said, Christen Adolfi, and I'm in central New York, just north of Syracuse. And we don't have a physical location, but we have an online ministry through Facebook and all the regular platforms. And we just have had a passion for studying this stuff for many years. He was the outgoing one, the one that was typically in front of the camera, but I do love all this stuff. And I'll be doing, the videos going forward. So, yeah.
Right now, the atheist idea of evolution is, I think, stupid. They teach man used to be itty bitty, amoeba, actually. Actually, we all came from a dot of nothing and then slowly evolved today. But they teach that humans used to be smaller, and now we're getting bigger, better, stronger, smarter. John did great work on evidence that humans were much bigger. Why don't you give us what you've got on that, Christen, and then any other questions or comments you'd like to make? Go ahead. About what your museum is about.
I just think that even few Christians and creationists have really thought it through with what it means to be fresh from the hand of God. What was that pre-flood world like? Both people, animals, plants. Why is it So here's a, fossil record beaver skull, obviously very small very big compared to, a little modern one. Hard to hold these things with one hand here, but something about the pre-flood world was different. Why? Why would you have millipedes 8.5 feet long and dragonflies from one wingtip to one wingtip 28 inches across? Something was different, and it wasn't just, the animals. In New York, these are, called horsetails today. They had a different name in the fossil record, but, you're talking 30 inches max in in New York. But under the right conditions, like I've seen them in Peru, 8.5, 9 feet. Here's one from the fossil record. And this is just a little one. I mean, these things were 3 feet across, 150 feet tall. Why? I just say that creationism and Genesis is a better explanation of what's been happening, and that fresh from the hand of God means that basically everything has been getting dumber, shorter, and uglier. So after 6,000 years, this is what we got left, acne-filled, wrinkled up, pathetic versions of what we once were. So if the plants and animals and everything like that was big, why wouldn't we have been magnificent? All the legends of giants, all the, Greek gods, where did all this stuff come from? I'd say that pre-flood humans were magnificent. Let's just say double to triple what we are now. I think the savants and prodigies are an excellent example of what we were all like. And it's one of my favorite topics. I've studied that for years. And we have people that are, acquired savants or acquired abilities. They'll get hit in the head, hit their head on the bottom of a pool, something like that. And then they've got abilities that they never had before. Like Orlando Sorrell, he got hit in the head with a baseball. I don't recommend this for how you become smarter. But, from that point forward, he could do calendar calculating. I mean, if you can ask somebody what day of the week was, January 16th, 1952, and they can tell you a Tuesday or whatever, I'm telling you, that ain't normal, and so if that ability is now there after you got hit in the head, could we turn it on? I mean, they're doing experiments with magnets to see whether you could turn on some of those abilities by turning off some of the other areas of the brain. But again, not to get too sidetracked, I'm just saying that I think that we are short-sighted and we're choosing a worldview that sells people short. If you choose evolution, and you're choosing a worldview that sells your self-worth short and makes you a cosmic accident or fluke, when Genesis says you were all that and then some. I mean, no wonder we'd be tempted to worship, like a Greek god or something like that, because we were magnificent. I mean, just the savant abilities alone. I mean, let me give you one example. There was these. They were born triplets. One died. Two of them were left in an assisted living facility because they were shorter than normal, bigger than normal heads, couldn't live on their own, but really brilliant. And the doctor came in one day. This was before computers were really widely, used. And he come in one day and he sees them sitting across from each other, and one would give a 6-digit number and the other one would smile as if he was enjoying it. And so then the other one would say a 6-digit number and the other one would smile. So the doctor suspected they were doing prime numbers. So if you don't remember what a prime number is, it's, something that can only be divided by itself in one. So like 1, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, I can go up, little ways. So he goes to the library, gets a book on large digit prime numbers, and he comes back and he opens it up, picks out an 8-digit prime number, gives it to him. And they looked at him with, big eyes. And it felt like 5 minutes, but then they opened their chairs up and, invited him into the group. And so then they started doing 8-digit, then 9-digit, then 10-digit prime numbers. Well, his book didn't go any higher, so he had to abandon the game. So he comes back a few hours later and they're doing 20-digit prime numbers. So let your mind start to wrap around what it was like, to be made fresh from the hand of God. We're 6,000 years later, we're nothing like what we were pre-flood. And I think all this evidence is the best, it's best interpreted to support Genesis, not evolution.
Amen. I'd like to hear more on this savant, they call it. People just have an uncanny knowledge of like the calendars or numbers or things like that, or even historical dates. And it's phenomenal. People that can do great, huge multiplication in their head, like a computer. You have any more stories you want to share on that?
Yeah, there's some really interesting examples. I'll give one of them. Her name is Shakundala Devi. She was born in India in 1929, and her father was a trapeze artist. But by age 6, he already realized she was worth showcasing. So from that point forward, he used her to kind of earn a living. And in 1977, she beat a computer twice. Now, I get it. Our computers have gotten faster, but we're still talking faster than what humans could normally do. And let me give you an example. She did the cube root of 188,132,517. I'd be lucky to do the square root, much less a cube root.
Right.
The answer's 573 if you don't know. But she like this, these numbers would just come into her head. These aren't like she's thinking it through and doing some kind of calculating. They would just come into her head. And that's a common thread through a lot of different stories of people with math abilities. They come into their head. So she also took 50 seconds, 50, to do in her head the 23rd root of a 201 digit number. Okay, that's like scary. You know what I mean? Like, that's not normal. In 1980, she multiplied these two really big, long numbers together in 28 seconds. I could just go on and on. I mean, you've all heard of people that graduated young, maybe when they're 11 or 13 or whatever. But we're talking about, just a completely different level of, and I got a bazillion examples because it's one of my favorite topics.
Okay. Well, even people savant with music, little
Yes.
5-year-olds that can play Beethoven symphonies, and just, I believe, I suspect you believe the same thing, that God made Adam and Eve savant in every area.
Yes.
And we've lost a lot of that. We've lost a lot of it.
Yep.
And it was just a different world. We see architecture, things that they could move 70-ton stones, 400 feet in the air. We have no idea how they did that. We can't do it today. How did they make some of the giant megalith structures? They knew something.
John and I still say that the what they attribute to the Inca in Peru, those megalithic stones that you can't get a knife between, we still say that was an early post-flood civilization that was softening stone, and that the Inca found them and built on them. And I can say that for many reasons, but when we went and investigated them, we took those feeler gauges. They're different thicknesses of metal. And you literally couldn't get 9/100ths of a millimeter between them. There were places where the line was so close between the stones that it just almost disappeared to the eye. It was crazy. So, and when I would ask, because I gave everybody a fair hearing, I would ask people, like all the different guides that I would meet, who do you think made them? And, of course, a bunch of them would say the Inca. And then some of them would say aliens. And then the one that made the most sense to me, he says, I think there was an early worldwide megalithic civilization, and he gave the different countries that he'd seen this stuff in and why he felt that that Peru was no different. So again, post flood, you've got the first 400 or 500 years, people are dumbing down in age. Is that why they were, or also the time when they were dumbing down in size, and why we ended up seeing pockets that were still big, even into, Goliath time period and stuff like that. It just makes more sense from a creationist worldview.
Okay, as you and John did research on this type of stuff, the megalithic structures, for example, did anything come up about them? They knew how to cut stones and move them with sound or music.
They showed me places where there was examples of like cut marks, and we're not talking by any kind of saw. The one guide thought it was from water pressure, and he showed me examples where it literally, I don't know how else you'd describe it or explain it away other than some kind of advanced technology. He didn't say sound or anything like that, but again, I didn't think to ask him that. So,
well, I've tried to get to the bottom of that. I can't. Okay, I suspect, I couldn't prove this, that the Great Pyramid was built before the flood, and survived the flood. What would Noah's flood do to a pyramid besides get it wet? Then it would dry out again because it was such, go ahead.
He did say that the trees in the area over the last, 1,000 years, they weren't the type that you could have used to roll, because they showed me the quarry. I took a donkey ride up to the quarry, several miles away, and they said, oh yeah, I should say the other guides, not him, because again, the best answers I got were from him. They said, oh, they would push the rocks down over the edge and they would tumble down to the bottom of the hill and they would cart them down. And instead of going directly across the valley to Ollantaytambo proper, where they got set up, they'd take them all the way down the other end of the city, and they said they would take them partway across the water by diverting the river, and then they would divert it again and take them all the way the rest of the way. But in order to do that, you then had to go up like at least a 300-foot cliff just to get to the main landing, and then up another several hundred feet. And even if you wanted to say, okay, well, they put a couple of thousand people on ropes, where would you put them? Because on top of, like where the 6 biggest stones are in Ollantaytambo, way up on top of the temple area, you couldn't get a couple of thousand men up there to try to work ropes. Nothing makes sense without some kind of advanced technology post-flood, in my humble opinion.
I agree 100%. See, the modern atheists and evolutionists want you to think that man is getting bigger, better, stronger, smarter.
Yeah.
The exact opposite. People are so stupid today, they think there's more than 2 genders. Yeah.
Yeah.
I tell the atheists, if you think there's more than 2 genders, I'll pay you $20 to come milk our bull. I want to video you flying over the fence, okay? They think, there are people today who think they're related to a banana, and we all came from a dot of nothing exploding. You'd have to have help. You'd have to go to college for years to be dumb enough to believe that kind of stuff. I love making fun of the atheists and evolutionists. It's the dumbest religion in the world. Okay. So you said you enjoy studying the savant stuff. I'm thrilled to hear about that because there are some just stunning things. Even today, people have little glimpses of that, like see a 3-year-old playing Beethoven, on the piano or something.
And it's not just music or math or art. It's other areas. I watched a guy, he holds 5 world records. Anyway, I saw him take a sword, it's in his sheath. They fire a BB gun at him, which is 200 miles per hour. He pulls out the sword and slices the BB as it's going through the air at him. So, and they brought in a specialist to try to explain how he was doing it. And she's like, that's not even registering as something intuitively like happening. And again, if you take all the different, I've got people that I know that are unbelievably amazing at estimating distance, and there's just like every area. It's not just like math and art or music. It's like every area. So paint that whole picture together and you start to get an idea of what we were like.
I think it even goes into the stars. I can't prove this, but Adam and Eve didn't have a Bible. So I think God gave them the whole gospel story in the stars. And they could see things much more clearly than we can today. I'm a strong believer in the canopy theory. There used to be a crystal canopy 2 or 3 fingers thick of ice above the atmosphere, compressing it down to maybe 10 miles instead of the current 40 or 50, which means you could see everything much more clearly than we can today. They have to get outside of our atmosphere with the space shuttle and stuff and the Hubble telescope to be able to see things more clearly. So they probably, like you said, calculate the distance. They knew things. Plus, Adam came pre-programmed straight from the hand of God, fully loaded computer. People today, they say, use less than 10% of their brain. I had students that used way less than that. Well, okay, but I've seen some people that use way less than that. So yeah, that's a fascinating study of just what was pre-flood man like. What else did you and John discover besides they were much bigger and much smarter? What about their health?
Well, I think the hyperbaric chambers give a really good idea of what it was like to live in the pre-flood world, because if you did have a higher oxygen or air pressure, your wound healing is going to be different, that your energy levels is going to be different, and the electromagnetic field was superior. at protecting us. The nutrition level of the soil, I think, was off the charts compared to our pathetic little stuff. We've seen it go down in the last 70 to 100 years as far as the nutrition level of what we're getting in our foods. So, back that up before we had a flood that messed everything up and turned everything upside down. What would a perfect world be like? How good would you feel? There's some interesting quotes. I don't have it in front of me, but Josephus talks about how there was a golden age. He quotes like a whole big long list of ancient historians who said that there was a golden age where people lived 1,000 years and you died as if just overcome by sleep. In other words, and then it said that it was easy, almost without effort, to survive. What does that sound like? Genesis? I mean,
yep.
So, why do our football players and everybody get in, hyperbaric chambers? Because they can speed heal and rejuvenate and duplicate. They don't realize they are, but they're duplicating the pre-flood world. So
exactly right.
A smart God kind of knew what he was doing.
Been here for a long time. I have phlegm on the uvula. It should get better when it's hurting, though. Okay, so this is fascinating. The pre-flood world is something that you have been. See, atheists and evolutionists want us to believe evolution is the exact opposite of science in every way. They say, God said the animals will bring forth after their kind. That's all any farmer in the world's ever seen. Cows make baby cows, sheep make baby sheep. There are no exceptions. But they've got these stupid charts with everything connected. That's insane. Did John or you ever do debates with atheists or evolutionists? Or
no, we never really went that direction, because this is my opinion, but this is not a knowledge or a logic problem. This is a heart problem.
Yep.
So those type of people, God bless them, but they're not interested in hearing what I have to say, and that's fine. They're welcome to their opinion. I just asked them to give me the same right. Again, something you said many years ago, I just found absolutely powerful and fascinating. Like there's a fact column that's being interpreted by creationists and evolutionists, but what they did was they took the fact column, packaged it up with their interpretation, and pawned that off as science. That fact column belongs to me too. So, you can say all the things you want to say, but you have to give me the right to interpret that fact column the way I see fit, because you don't have any stronger standing. Like they say that there's no evidence for floods, for a worldwide flood. I want to fall over every time I hear that. I'm like, you know what the most powerful reason or proof of a flood is? That I can't walk down any street or go into any backyard or pick up a rock without finding a fossil. So, okay, this river overflowed and okay, so that buried that animal. Okay, I got one. Okay, great. What about the ones that are a half mile away, a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles? Everywhere you go, you can't go anywhere without finding a fossil. So, like, how many catastrophes or rivers do you have to have overflow before you're going to come up with? I just say that you're looking at, you can't, even a desert, the Sahara Desert's full of trilobites and other fossils. It makes zero sense. And that's why you keep saying it's a religion to them. It's a heart problem. It's not a knowledge or a logic problem. They cannot see the evidence for the flood because they don't want to see. It's a dumb on purpose situation.
Yep. What about research that you guys did on the flood and the effects, what it would do, not just the pre-flood world with them being bigger, better, stronger, smarter, but what would a global flood do to the world? Did you and John? I know he did some stuff on that years ago, but
yeah, we've got a lot of stuff on that. Because that's one of our favorite topics is, like, I mean, you can hit this from any different direction, but for example, this is flowstone from a bridge in Canada. I was up in Calgary, and you go into a cave and all the tours, they'll say, don't touch the stalactites, it'll take thousands or hundreds of thousands of years to rebuild. Okay, back up. because you can go and find the exact same thing. And there are certain caves where ladders were left in or whatever. And you can see over a period of time how fast flowstone or a stalactite or anything else can build up. It doesn't take the period of time that they're saying. It just takes the right conditions. So if you've got post-flood, a saturated world, I mean, yeah, dried out enough to get out, the ark, but you've got a saturated world where you've got highly mineralized water still flowing down through, caves and stuff like that. You've got temperature. That's all you need is like what we're seeing now is dead caves, barely living. But if you go back to a post-flood scenario where you've got, warmth and plenty of running water and highly mineralized, you've got the perfect conditions for all of this stuff.
Well, on my video number 1 of my series, I go through different ways to prove the Earth is not billions of years old. One of them is the cave formation stuff. Carlsbad Caverns, they say, oh, don't touch these things. They took millions of years to form. That stalactite you held up a minute ago is from under a bridge that obviously somebody built in the last 100 years up in Canada. This happens all over the world. Some guy in Monroeville over here had a giant pile in his yard of flowstone. I bought the whole thing off him and brought it over here in our museum. We use it for landscaping rocks. It's very common. Let's see. Yeah. Giant stalactites. Stalactites hang from the ceilings, hang tight to the ceiling. Stalagmites are on the ground. I thought you remember the difference, okay? So there's no question there are thousands and millions of these around the world, and they say it took millions of years to form. I got a few pictures here. Christen, maybe you can show, do you have any more other than that? But I'll talk about how they form, the quartzite and all that stuff. Baking soda, let's see, right here. No. Quickly forming stalactite, flowstone formations. There are many pools. You can study just flowstone. Stalactites, stalagmites. Here we go. This is Luray Caverns in Virginia, one of the most well-formed flowstone draperies in the world. New Mexico's unfinished symphony, 250 million years ago, tiny drops of water. They say they grow 0.00028 inches per year. That's about like nothing, okay? It takes 3,000 years to grow an inch is what they're saying. I don't think that's quite the truth here, guys. Let's see.
Well, and again, if you're looking at it from, a modern situation and how much water we see flowing over that, right now, then you would come to the conclusion that your math is right and your ages are correct. But if you're talking about a catastrophic situation where post-flood, we've got massive runoff, then you got sped up timeframes. And I'm willing to admit, I'm making an assumption when I look at that stuff that it wasn't the same, 4,500 years ago, that's when this took place. I'm willing to admit I'm making an assumption because that's my worldview. Are you, as an evolutionist, willing to say, I'm making an assumption that because I'm seeing it flow that slow now, that it was always that way and it took that long?
No,
I don't know why they're not willing to do that.
See, it's simple, Christen. There's only two choices. There is a God or there isn't. Nobody's thought of a third choice, okay? If there's a God, that's going to greatly affect their lifestyle. They want freedom from God's rules. That's the reason people are atheists, not because there's any scientific evidence. People are evolutionists because they want freedom from God. There's no evidence for evolution. This is the Lincoln Memorial, built 1922. Less than 40 years later, there's already 50-inch stalactites growing underneath the Lincoln Memorial, just from water dripping through. Okay? This is cave formation under a parking garage. Rapid cave formation by sulfuric acid dissolution. Origin of limestone caves. There's plenty of articles on that. There's a bat covered up with flowstone before it could rot. There's that ladder you were talking about.
That's one of them. There's another one too.
Yeah, proving they had ladders millions of years ago. Yeah. There you go.
I went to the.
Go ahead.
Oh, I've got some of those. I got some cool stuff like that.
Anything with you can show us now?
Some of the bottles are downstairs, but one of the other things that I got when I was in, I went to the Fairmount Springs, and now granted they have a big pool that most people are there to go swim in the pool. I could care less about the pool. I wanted to go down over the hill where all the water flows. And, because I had this book by Vance Nelson called Catastrophic Caves, and a lot of the artifacts that he's got in his book, we have. Well, anyway, I went down over the hill to verify some of the things that he was pointing out down there. And I found that anytime a twig or branch of any size was in the water, very shortly it got covered. It turned into these drumsticks. And like even grass or leaves, it didn't matter what it was, plants of every kind, they get covered in calcite. It just turns to stone. And of course, they'll all start squawking and going, oh, that's just fast forming mineral. Everybody knows that minerals, can precipitate quickly. Okay, you can't have it both ways.
That's right.
If
They
you're,
want
if
to
you,
be right.
yeah, I mean, then tell me why I'm wrong for saying post flood, all these cave systems couldn't have formed quickly. Come on.
Yeah. Somebody sent me these a couple days ago. Here is a spark plug encased in stone.
Yep.
Can't zoom in, can you, Joseph? No. Here is another spark plug encased in stone. Here's a pocket knife. We're going to put these in our museum. A pocket knife encased in stone. I think the atheists need to go back to school in a school that is not prejudiced against, just a common sense school. Look, the evidence is overwhelming. This stuff happens quickly. 1987, this picture was taken in a lead mine in Australia when the mine was only 55 years old. That's the flowstone formations in a mine in Australia. Those are people standing in there. Gold mining cave in Cripple Creek, Colorado, less than 40 years old. Features ceilings, floors, walls covered with quick growing flowstone. This is down in Pensacola, Herbert Field, Florida, near there. Let's see, 13-inch stalactite grew in 7 years. On the bottom was a stalagmite dripping down. They broke it off and gave it to me. It's in our museum here. 7 years. There's so many, there were stalagmites growing on students' cars in the parking garage. You had to put up a pan to catch the water coming down to prevent that. There's a bucket got left in too long at Endless Caverns, Newmarket, Virginia. So there's a bat covered up. It's the same stuff you get on your sink, the stains, 40 years to the inch. This proves people had plumbing 400,000 years ago. Look at that. That's Fort Eno in Finland, built between 1909 and 1916. I think we've been lied to, folks. If you evolutionists want to believe that it takes millions of years and you got all your excuses, it's a different mineral, et cetera, okay. The fact is, it could all happen because of the flood. And the Bible said in the last days there would be scoffers, who would be willingly ignorant of that flood.
Dumb on purpose.
Dumb
yeah, and the
purpose.
reason I do this is because there are many people out there that do want to believe in a creationist worldview, but they feel like an idiot because they're told what do you believe in fairy tales and unicorns, and they get slammed for believing in the almighty spaghetti monster in the sky. I mean, you name it. I've seen them tear people up one side and down the other. They seem, those evolutionists and atheists, they just seem incapable of allowing civil, fair-minded, open dialogue. They seem to have a fit, but like you said, whether it's a spark plug or coins in stone, there's just so many examples of things that where it forms quickly. I've got pipes full of aragonite. There's just it happens in a lot more situations than we realize. So you're not crazy for believing these things. It's just that there's not enough of us out there that are showing the examples and saying with a louder voice, it makes more sense from a creationist worldview. And that's why I use only evolutionist materials. Everything I study, everything I quote, there's not a single creationist source that I use, because when they all go after me, I want to be able to say, you said it. I'm just saying that it makes more sense from a creationist worldview.
I'll put mine up for a minute here, Joseph. In 1903, there was a hot mineral spring in, I think it's Wyoming, I forget. Anyway, the water started bubbling up out of the ground like we saw, Joseph, out in California, the La Brea tar pits. They stuck a pipe in the ground and let the water come out the top of the pipe. Coming down the side of the pipe, he started coating it with minerals. 1903 was just a pipe. Here it is now, the TP fountain. I don't think it takes millions of years. I think it takes water with minerals in it. There's me, 6'2", next to this thing in 1998. Started off just a pipe less than 100 years ago. So,
Yep.
boy, that would take some lime away. Ooh wee. Okay. I don't think it takes millions of years to form these things at all. That's a few blocks a few years later down the street. So, yeah, flowstone flowing over a waterfall here, turning to stone in Reno, Nevada. Anyway, so Christen, thank you so much for what you do, the work you do. I would like all my supporters and all my viewers, go to her channel, Lost World Museum, support her. She's in a rough time right now. 2 months ago, her husband died, unfortunately, and they were doing a fabulous work. We need to continue that, keep it going. You don't have a brick and mortar building for your museum stuff. You need to get one, but it needs to be in Lenox, Alabama. Okay. I told her we got a whole room here. We'll give her for all of her stuff and she can move down here and do it. Okay. Do you have a YouTube channel, Christen?
Yes. Yep. So we're on all the platforms. Lost World Museum. Yeah. Right now I'm only posting really on Facebook and Lost World and YouTube. We had 1 million followers on TikTok, but then we haven't really focused on that. Instagram, haven't really focused on that. But the main ones are YouTube and Facebook.
Okay. What other topics are your favorite ones to discuss or research?
Oh goodness, I got a lot of them because it's addicting. But yeah, so I don't focus just on the geology. John really enjoyed those topics, but I go all the way from the war in heaven that started this whole nonsense, all the way through the final events, the attack on the New Jerusalem that ends everything. So yeah, I'm sweeping through history from a biblical standpoint. So, but I would say my favorites are the pre-flood world and what it was like, the flood, the forces involved. I absolutely love that. I got multiple presentations on that. Love those topics. It was scarier than most Christians. They think, oh, I mean, it rained for 40 days. And then, did it really bury everything with just that? No, it was 40 days before the ark lifted off the ground in the area where it was. It's not like it only rained for 40 days and nights. Misconception out there, folks. Anyway, so yeah, I love the flood and the forces involved. I love the post-flood world. Those first 1,000 years post-flood are fascinating, not just geologically and how much upheaval we were still in, but the level of apostasy was unbelievable, because in the full light of, people that like Abraham could talk to Shem, somebody that had actually lived in the pre-flood world, people that had lived through the flood. And yet, despite all this, we've got Sodom, Gomorrah, and all of this apostasy. So it's amazing, those first 1,000 years.
All right, this is our call-in show. Is anybody waiting to call in, Joseph, for questions or comments?
We have questions, definitely.
Okay, got some questions. Here's the chart I made about Adam, lived to be 930, but Noah lived after the flood for a long time, and Noah's son Shem lived 500 years after the flood. He could have known Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Mm-hmm. Imagine meeting your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, and he could tell you what it was like before the flood. I bet they wrote those stories down. Anyway, go ahead, Joseph. Questions here, and see if Christen wants to answer any. What's your favorite evidence for the global flood? There you go, Christen. Take it away.
There's a lot of them, but I would say the most common one is just literally picking up a fossil in your backyard. But even go bigger. What kind of situation? And again, this is from the Encyclopedia of Evolution, the Karoo supergroup in Africa. It says there's 800 billion fossils in that area. Tell me what event, natural processes can you come up with that would bury 800 billion animals? I don't know. Worldwide flood?
And many with their neck back like they're trying to get one more breath.
From the common backyard to the big, statewide or even countrywide layers and stuff, it's fascinating that they can't see this.
They're willingly ignorant. There's just no kind way to say it. I call them dumb on purpose, willingly ignorant. Yeah. Plus, why would there be all these 400 some legends of a flood? Why would every culture seem to have a legend of a flood?
Yeah.
Maybe because there was a flood.
A global trauma. You don't forget global traumas.
Yeah. Okay. The question, Richard, there. Okay. Do you ever think that all the fossils we see of Neanderthals are actually fossils of all people in biblical types that lived hundreds or hundreds of years old? What's your thoughts on that? Who were the Neanderthals, Kristen?
There's a lot of different odd skeletons, skulls that I would just say that, is it possible they were messing with things in the pre-flood world? And even some of this manifested post-flood, possible. I don't know. I just think that there's a lot of variety. Like if you take, for example, a poodle versus a Great Dane, there's a lot of variety built into any given, species. So, or any given kind. So is the same thing possible with us, that, you can have a sloped back forehead, or a more beetle brow, I've got friends that, major overbite, underbite. I know some of this stuff is just 6,000 years of sin stuff, but I just think there's a lot of variety built into the human genome. So when you're under all these different conditions post-flood, we went through an ice age. Yes, I do believe in an ice age, not multiple ones, but I do believe that the flood caused the earth to rock on its axis, and there was a lot of trauma post-flood. So you got some pretty brutal conditions we were also living through that could possibly cause denser bones. We had different heights, again, dumbing down at different sizes. I don't know. I'm not going to take uniformly that this is my answer. I'm just saying that variety and condition could cause quite a different, set of skulls.
Yeah, the Neanderthals, the main things they point to is the larger eyebrow ridge, and the back of the head, the occipital bun, is elongated. Their brains were 13% bigger than ours. How is that evolution? If a person
I see people today with big beetle brows, some of them.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they're not human or.
Right. Well, after the flood, people lived to be 400 years old. When you eat and chew on things, the masseter muscles are pulling your jaw up and down. The frontalis muscle is moving stuff back and forth, Just when a muscle pulls on a bone, it sends a signal for the body to develop denser bone there. A bodybuilder not only builds bigger muscles, they build bigger bones. It's a slower process, but they do.
Mm-hmm.
If a person just simply lived to be 400, just simply chewing and eating and smiling, their brow ridge would get larger. I think the Neanderthals were just 300 or 400-year-old humans. And if you put your head down to look at something and pull it back up, what pulls it back up? The muscles on the back of your upper back, and they're attached, they got the sternocleidomastoid and all these muscles attached to the skull. Just pulling on that occipital bun over 400 years might elongate it some. So I think the Neanderthals were perfectly normal human that probably lived to be 400. That's it. Okay. Other questions there, Joseph? Yeah, we're all like that at the core. I can draw it out. Anyone? Dark, Peter, Starlight. She's right about the extra abilities with humans. Something in our genetics seems to be blocking it. Yeah. Some people seem to have been dumbed down. See, if you go to college long enough, you'll get really dumbed down. You start believing you're related to a potato. There we go. Morgan writes in, have you ever looked into Graham Hancock or Randall Carlson? They talk about the pyramids and water erosion on them. I have a tiny bit. Kristen, have you?
Some. If only I had 900 years to, scratch every itch and run down every rabbit hole, I'd be happy as a pig in mud. I am aware of some of those theories out there. Whether they were really pre-flood or post-flood, I don't know. Can't weigh in on that. I do understand the water erosion. I've seen the evidence of it, but that could have been some post-flood, but our climate, if you look at the various rock art and stuff, there are whole areas that used to be gorgeous savannas teeming with animal and now are, just dry desert. So post-flood, we had some pretty drastic changes in the first, 500-600 years. So was that water erosion early on post-flood? I don't know. Or pre-flood.
Let's see. And you've said several times tonight, and I say it frequently, I don't know. See, atheists aren't willing to admit that. We say we believe, and we don't know certain things, and we believe God created the earth. I can't prove that. I believe he did. I believe God gave us a book that, that's flawless. See, we admit ours is a religion. They don't dare admit theirs is a religion because then they lose tax funding because we're not supposed to have religion. They say we're not supposed to have religion in schools. Baloney. We have religion in schools. It's only one, the evolution religion. The only one allowed in public schools. We got to put a stop to that. Okay. Next question, Joseph. Miss Adolfi, when will you offer your research to the public?
I've got a lot of stuff in motion. I've got like 52 booklets that are 20 to 50 pages long each on all of these topics. They go all the way from the war in heaven right all the way down through history. They hit a lot of these pre-flood, the flood, the post-flood, all the way through history. Some are already done. Some are still in various stages. I've got, I could go on and on. I just need time to be able to, I had just gotten my stuff ready enough to go side by side with John in ministry. He was trying to hit the more, the people like he was before he became a Christian. He was a beer drinking, party going Navy guy with no interest in Christianity, and when God got his attention. So he was really aiming for people like that. I wanted to aim a little bit more for those that are willing to hear a biblical, creationist worldview. And again, on all these topics, but on more, God all the way through history, his relentless faithfulness. So I had just gotten enough of my stuff ready to go side by side with him when he got diagnosed with cancer. So I'm 6 months behind as far as my release, but over this year, I'm going to start ramping up. I'm hoping by January 1st of next year to sweep all the way through history from a biblical standpoint. So,
amen.
A lot of stuff coming out this year.
Yeah, if I have to finish everything God laid on my heart, I'm going to have to live to be 900 years old myself.
I know, right?
Amen. Any other, Joseph?
Not for the both of you.
Not for the both of us. Okay. Well, we'll have you on again sometime. Now, listen, all of you, please, we got a lot of people watching my channels. Go to Lost World Museum, subscribe, and watch the stuff they're putting out. He's posting a lot of John's material that was phenomenal, and please watch it and subscribe and help him out. Christen, how cold was it up there in New York today?
Too cold. It was like 18, 20.
72 down here. We're not trying to rub it in. We're trying to point out, we'd like you to come visit sometime. So, okay. All right, folks. No atheist called in. Joseph, what happened? Okay. All right, good. No show tomorrow morning. Tune in 10:30 here Central Time. And tell all your friends about us. Come visit Dinosaur Adventureland. And Christen, get a place to put your stuff out on display where people can come see it. Do you have the hand of Adam there with you? Do you have the hand of Adam there with you? I
do. Just to give people perspective. If you were talking about a 15-foot person, which is reasonable, this is the difference in size. And I've got the head here too.
No, I'd have to make a minor objection. I don't think Adam wore pretty rings on his fingers. Okay. He was a man's man. I don't wear pretty jewelry for lots of reasons. Okay. I don't have any, number one, and don't want. There's Adam. Okay.
Just gives you perspective. What would a 15-foot person look like?
I agree. Hey, man, thank you so much for joining us. You're welcome. If you get some new research, you want to come on the show, call Joseph. You know how to get a hold of him. Say, I got something new. But please, Lost World Museum, support her channel. Please do. All right, folks. See you Sunday morning.
Apes, aliens, or Adam. It all boils down to that. You got to pick one, so you might as well, might as well feel comfortable in your skin. Look into it.
Yeah.
Have some fun.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much, Christen. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.